to um, answer all those questions satisfactorily. And immediately we stepped out of the office, the top managers had to tell us that we need to start the job with the immediate effect, and that was it. So the point I want to make out from it is that as individuals, we must all be versatile. We must all be well-grounded. Then we must have an opportunity to believe in ourselves. You know, I was reading a lot, doing a lot of training at that point, but I never knew that getting in front of top profile people I could. So all of us have this innate thing in us that can make us, fly high and of course, very high. Then also we must consider being mentored to along the line. You know, I was standing on the shoulder of giants to have the opportunity to meet that professor of law to defend that project, and that was it. So our presentation today will take us through all of this. And because of time, I would like to, move to the actual definition of some of the key things. So basically, when we look at being versatile, I'm not going to go so technical today. I want us to be relaxed, and I just want us to pick from experiences and begin to think of what to actually make us better engineers. From the picture, you can see, somebody that is versatile must be able to adapt to every situation. We are in COVID-19, and the new normal is taking place. How well have you been able to key into it? One of the professional organizations that I'm in, and we discussed some things about importation, and a lot of people used to import wastewater treatment plants, but because of the banning, restriction movements and the rest of it, we need to look for local engineers that can create these solutions. So have you been able to begin to adapt to so many other things that are happening in and around you? So that's the very first thing. And once you begin to adapt to those situations, you must challenge yourself. You must just note it. You must challenge yourself. Things that you believe you cannot do. You can see this man trying to get over to the other side of the mountain. He had to challenge himself irrespective of all odds. And let's note, when we are trying to be versatile, we must begin to start with volunteer jobs in professional organizations. Don't think about money first. So once you start doing volunteer jobs, believe you me, there are some things that will develop some very rare skills in you that will propel you to your future. And also the 21st century that we've been talking about, I won't delve much on that because in the last PDFs, we've had our well-profound brothers that have talked extensively on artificial intelligence, on all these electrical internet infrastructures that we need to key into, to be up to date in what we're doing. Now, what I want to get, all of us know who an engineer is, but majorly, I would like to share an experience with us, because my own perception of an engineer is that you must be a good project manager and you must learn project management. I remember about 3 years ago, I had this particular consultancy job, and usually we convert septic tanks into sewage treatment plants. So usually it takes about 3 weeks to a month if it's really small. But this time around, I told myself that I was going to do this. I was going to do this in less than 2 weeks. And I told the clients, I'm going to do it in 2 weeks for you. And I began to develop my work breakdown structure, my schedule breakdown structure, and my cost breakdown structure. And all of it, I wanted to achieve in 10 days. So I actually stood by the project all day till night. I monitored all the stuff. I watched all the critical parts that could extend the timeline of my project, and I ensured that it was delivered to time. But to my surprise, the wife of the owner of the organization was watching me over the CCTV. I was controlling all my team members to ensure we meet up with the time and we achieve quality, and we achieve it to time and to cost. So the next thing, immediately after that project, we awarded another project in one of their personal estate at Oral Estate. They had about 8 duplex that they built, and they wanted a wastewater treatment plant in it. So we were commissioned immediately, and that was because of the kind of attitude we showed to the job. So whatever kind of engineer we are, we must also learn project management alongside, be it a very small project, be it a very big one, because whatever temporary endeavor that we expect to get a unique result from, we must treat it as a project. Then now, what I want us to get from being an environmental engineer is basically being a public speaker, and I'll give you my reasons for it. And it's not far-fetched. You see, if I want to, build a wastewater treatment plant for a big for my organization, maybe I have a big organization and I have roughly 20 million naira to build that wastewater treatment plant. Of course, I'm not going to be able to call my friend that, hey, come to my backyard. I built a wastewater treatment plant for 20 million naira. But if I have an Escalade, I'll probably tell my friend, or if I just built a house, I'll probably tell my friends to come along. Oh, I just built this house for about 20 million naira, and you guys can come and have prayers with me and dine and wine. So if you are not a very good public speaker, I'm telling you, you would not be able to convince your clients why they should spend so much money on their environment, except it's the government. But the reality is that if you are eventually able to do that, what that means is that you will be able to build a very good work culture, and people will see you as a boss or as a leader that is concerned about their health, because you are talking about getting them clean water, ensuring that the ecosystem is clean, is clear, you're managing their waste. So they feel concerned. You can imagine an organization whereby the water they want to drink, look at the whole of VI, the water they want to drink is not clean, and the organization is not paying attention to that, and people are falling ill. So there's a whole lot of benefits from leaders of organization paying attention to the environment, and that is also an opportunity for us in disguise. So we have to be good public speakers as environment. So that's what I want us to take home, because we can't take everything. So I also want us to have this understanding of the fact that all engineers, I mean all engineers are relevant in environmental engineering. And I'll give us an explanation from my niche. For instance, you want to build a sewage treatment plant, I'll come again. To build it, the civil works, the concrete works, you need a civil engineer to come and help you put all of this together. And now you need to install pumps, you need to install air blowers. All of this is the bit of the mechanical engineer. And so you can see that a mechanical engineer is also relevant in doing that. Now, if you put all those pumps and air blowers inside, who is going to power it? Definitely is the electrical engineer that will see to the connection, is the electrical engineer that will see to the automation of those systems, and even to the Industry 4.0 that we're talking about, installing a SCADA system, installing a PLC system. It is still the same electrical engineer that will do all of that. Yes, I can't forget, of course, the chemical engineer. We look into the process. If you want to treat waste, that means basically fecal matter, to clean water, something reusable, then you need a process engineer to look into the process for you. So whatever discipline that we have whatsoever, we are so much relevant in bringing environmental solutions to the world. So let us begin to think of how we can key into it and not leave, oh, environmental engineers is those that discipline in school that will do it. No, we all have a niche there. So now these are all the disciplines that we want to go to. We cannot exhaust all of this. But one singular fact I want to give us is that enlightenments are coming up, and there are a lot of there's this national policy that was signed some days ago that was presented by the Minister for Environment. It was approved by the Federal Executive Council. That's the national policy on solid waste management. That means Nigeria now will be shifting towards zero waste. Nigeria now will be shifting towards circular economy. All these things I'm talking about are a whole broad topic that we can also key into, and solid waste management is a major discipline that we need to look into. Now, when you look at water and wastewater, for our understanding, when you are doing water treatment, you are basically killing the bacteria inside the water so that it can be something that we can drink. Now, when you're talking about wastewater, you now want to do the opposite. You want
right, so if you have 3 minutes left.
Minutes, okay, good. I'm almost done. So you just want to keep those bacteria alive, and that's it. So we have several other fields. So you have to look at the regulation that is in town. Like in Lagos, we have some regulation on wastewater that enables us to be able to invest. They will talk about data analytics to HSC and so many other environmental impact assessments. We can also, like for me now, my new challenge now is going on to Google and learning how to do biodigester, because that is really sustainable. It generates power for you and so many other aspects. Look at all the state of it. With this Aqua Designer, you can design a wastewater treatment plant in just 15 minutes rather than 6 hours I use for my calculation and the rest. Look at all these MLC, PLC, and SCADA system. There's something we call SCADA Istura. If you install it and study the system for 1 month, you don't need to charge your clients. It will save the OPEX, which we know that the largest OPEX is maybe fuel. It will save it for about maybe 25% or 30%, and you get paid by yourself. They don't need to pay you, but you install something that will make them, Industry 4.0 compliant. Let's look at consultancy too. There are a whole lot of opportunities in consultancy. Now, if you look at getting a mentor, getting trained, all of these things, eliminating fear, branding yourself, and all of these things. Then solopreneurship, we need to think about that. If you really want to have the time of your own and decide to take a lunch whenever you want, then you can get all of that. We need to think about academic excellence too. We talked to you about MSc, PhD, our certification, getting reading books, and all of these things. Those are the things that will take us to being a very versatile engineer as we want to be. Then I also want to advise us to key into professional bodies, like Nigerian Society of Engineers, because one thing that these professional bodies do for us is that they pick very trending topics. So if you want to be up to date with what is happening in your industry, whether NI, EEE, so just be a member of these organizations, attend their meetings. They will give you leadership roles to take, and you'll be happy that you ever, join them for that period. So, trying to round up now is that we need to harness the energy from within. There are so many soft skills that we'll have acquired through LASOMEGA and through all this professional organization. I'll give you an example of, honesty. Look at the watching me over the CCTV, and I didn't know someone was watching over me, and I was trying to do my bit of my job very well. So all those things are inherent in us. We should use that opportunity. I can remember as a very young engineer, I was selected to manage certain high-profile areas in Lagos State. And my boss had to come back to tell me that, hey, Engineer Majolagi, it is because we know that you are very honest and you will not mess up at those places. That is why we have selected you. So we have some of these soft skills that are inherent in us that we can operate. Even as Muslim, spiritual intelligence is also key. How well do you observe your tajud that will propel you to win any consultancy interview that you want? We already learned about relating with people in generally from Islam, and all these things, we need to apply it to being a very versatile engineer. So my final take home is that, my brethren in faith, there are two major things. Is that as an engineer, you must be a project manager, and as an environmentalist, you must be a very good public speaker. So just go onto YouTube and click on all these TED Talks and how to become a good public speaker, and you will never regret that you attended this LASOMEGA presentation. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you very much for this wonderful presentation. Personally, I've learned a lot. I was hoping you were going to tell us a bit more about what you do today, right? About yourself, right? I'm already seeing questions around people that want to work with you. What opportunities do they have contacting you and all of that. But we'll get to that afterwards. Really appreciate your very interesting presentation. Just to do a quick recap for us, you've mentioned quite a lot of important things. Engineers are generally, you're supposed to be versatile. Make sure you are rounded. No knowledge is lost. Wherever you can find knowledge, continue to absorb knowledge. Believe in yourself. For those of us starting, find a good mentor. Get yourself a good mentor. Learn from them. Stand on the shoulders of people that have achieved. I'm trying to use your words. I'm sure I cannot completely present it the way you think. There are several opportunities you've mentioned, including focusing on biodigesters. That got my attention. I know that in the Lekki axis, where they have water ingress into soakaways and all of that, I've heard people propose solutions like biodigesters to eliminate the use of septic tanks and all of that. It's a good area to focus, just like you said. Consulting is another one you've mentioned. Networking, you mentioned, is very important. They say your net worth is your network. Keep good network, attend professional programs and all of that. People are raising their hands to ask you questions, but because of time, I would rather want to, I don't know if you'll be with us till the end, or we should take your questions now. If you don't mind, I can ask them to just.
I'm fine with anyone, but I think in this situation we need to ask the audience what their preference is. So I'm giving you the preference to ask the audience what their preference is. I'm sorry about that.
Oh no, it's fine.
Some people might not want to stay till after.
Okay, so let's just go ahead. I have a brother raising his hand. Please, brother Olanrewaju Ajao, we just have 3 minutes to take questions, so I'm just going to be able to accommodate 3 questions. His hand has been up. If you would like to talk, can you please unmute? Can you please unmute and go ahead with your question? Olanrewaju Ajao. Okay, I think he's finding it difficult to unmute unless he's controlled by the host. Host, if you can unmute Olanrewaju, can you please do that for me? Okay, Brother Yusuf, I'll kindly ask that you please pardon me. I will have to push out the questions towards the end of the program.
That's fine.
That we can immediately resolve this issue. Next on the line is Dr. Dosunmu. Sorry, Dr. Kundayo Jamil. Salaam alaikum, doctor. This is one of our very versatile panelists. He's a graduate of University of Lagos. He has his first degree in petroleum engineering. He has an MSc also from the Petroleum Institute of Abu Dhabi. And then his PhD is from Curtin University. I think he currently works with an oil company in the Middle East. He's going to be talking to us about data analytics and chemical engineering. So
Assalamu alaikum.
I'll kindly request that you take the floor. Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First of all, it's a huge honor to be invited to give this talk. If I am not making a mistake, there are some changes to the schedule, which I'm not quite sure if that is exactly what we have here. I agreed with, what's my brother's name again? Yeah, I agreed that
Yes.
I'll be talking about data analytics in oil and gas. Is that still what we have?
Correct.
Okay. So inshallah, then for the next few minutes, I'll be talking about that. I don't know if I have the permission. I don't have the permission to share. Please, can I share my screen?
Okay. Host, can you please allow Brother Jami to share?
I think Brother Yusuf would have to unshare, like I close his own screen or so.
Has that given you the right to share?
That's right.
Oh, okay. Excellent.
Jazakumullah khair.
Why? All right, so brother, just because of our timing, you have 15 minutes for this session. Thank you very much.
Inshallah, I'll say. First of all, I don't know if you are able to see my screen.
Yes, we can see your screen. Please go ahead.
All right. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahir Rahmanir
Alaikum
Rahim.
salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
We give thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who in his infinite mercy made us Muslims. And then out of his mercy, he made it possible for us to meet today, having set the date some weeks back, alhamdulillah, that we're all here as proposed. So not to belabor issues, because time is already fast spent, I know. So the topic I'll be talking about today is data analytics in oil and gas. And then my name has been, as I've already been introduced, is Jamiu Ekundayo. Just a bit of amendments to the introduction is currently I'm with Curtin University in Western Australia, where I'm finalizing my PhD. At the same time, I'm involved as a casual academic with the university. So to go straight to the point, I know the subject I'm talking about is data analytics in oil and gas, but first of all, to go to the bigger picture, the bigger subject, which is the versatile 21st century engineer. And then I just want to give us some again, insights into this subject to complement what Brother Yusuf spoke about earlier. You see the cartoon here shows that as an engineer in this century, we are expected to wear so many hats, all right? And then why is that? Why is that? Actually, a lot of discussions have been going on for years about what would be the skill requirements for engineers in this century. And then despite all these discussions, no one foresee COVID-19 or the current situation we found ourselves. So these discussions were basically centered on what the trends in emerging technologies were and how the engineers of this century will be able to catch up with those. So I have an excerpt here from Professor Joseph Bodogna, who retired as the Deputy Director for NSF in the US. And just to summarize, he says here, the 21st century engineers will need to be abstract makers, trusted innovators, agents of change, master integrators, enterprise enablers, technology stewards, and knowledge handlers. I mean, I'm very sure we quite understand what this means. As an engineer in this century, we have to be all encompassing. That is the key message. And then Apart from that, yet there was another report, also from US, Diran Apelian, and this person kind of summarized the key requirements from engineers in the 21st century. And again, you'll find out that these again correspond to whatever has been said in the previous excerpt, which says here, as an engineer in this century, you need to know everything. You should be able to do everything, works with anybody, anywhere, imagine and can make the imagination a reality. Again, this tells you and I that we have a lot on our hands. But then the question is, are we, getting ourselves for these greater challenges, or in fact, are we up to this task? Well, I actually don't demand an answer to that, but then we will see how the key subject I want to talk about here would illustrate some of the things that are required to work in the oil and gas today that were not there in the past few years. And just to chip in as an example, I said earlier that I am finalizing my PhD here at Curtin University, and recently I had an interview with one consulting firm, and interestingly, my CV got to them as a reservoir engineer. That was what I wanted. But when I got there, it turns out that what I was being interviewed for was to develop a software that would do everything that a petroleum engineer does. I mean, I have to be able to develop a static model, reservoir model, economic analysis, then have a software that integrates all of this together. That is what is required of you and I in this century, unfortunately. To move on, what you see here is an excerpt from the web page of a major oil company based in Australia here. And you will see clearly, it says, as a graduate petroleum engineer, you will combine the latest computing and data science technology with traditional engineering techniques, mathematics, physics, and geoscience to estimate how much oil and gas could be recovered from our reservoirs. This work supports the key investment decisions that shape Woodside's future. Again, it boils down to the fact that the traditional continuity equations, energy equations that you and I were taught back in schools are no longer the major requirements that we need to strive in this century. We need way more than that. Back to the main subject I am to talk about, or before I get into that, why should you even worry in the first place? Why should we worry about having extra skills as previously identified? This excerpt here, this picture you are seeing here is from a recent interview that was conducted on the CEOs of the Fortune 500 companies during this COVID-19 period. And here, the question very clearly says, in January 2021, how do you expect your company's total employment to compare to what it was in January 2020? And you will see overall here, more than 70% agree that their total employment will be way less than it was in January 2020. For those of us that are job hunting, that has a huge implication, but it doesn't end there. So if you are already gainfully employed, does that mean you should be complacent? I say no. If you look at the next two questions here, it says, at my company, this crisis will have what effect on the pace of technological transformation? And you will see that 75% agree that this would accelerate technological transformation. Where does that place you and I? It means we need to catch up. And one last thing is, they were again asked, how do you see capital expenditure, at your company compared to 2019? A majority agreed, right? When do you expect capital expenses at your company to exceed 2019? And majority expect that would take at least 1 or 2 years to happen, and some even said never. So the implication for this is that while we are trying to catch up with the technological transformation, we should expect that things like cost of training and all of those will be reduced by our employers. Anyways, let's move on. I don't know how much time I have to talk about this, but this is just an overview of the oil and gas business. I mean, to summarize, we have exploration to something we call static modeling, which goes from petrophysical, geological, then we have the dynamic modeling, then economic analysis, up to drilling, the appraisal, production, and drilling the development. One key thing to note here is that these processes are kind of iterative. And apart from being iterative, the truth is here, at the end, this involves a whole lot of investments, comes with a lot of uncertainties. And as my brother earlier said, you know, as engineers, we should be concerned about environmental issues, right? So here, there are huge environmental concerns. Paris Agreement is there for all the companies to meet, all the countries to meet. But in all of this gives a huge opportunity for big data exploration. And I'm going to play one or two videos just for us to quickly see how some of the companies around the globe are using data science. So please bear with me. I hope you'll be able to hear the sound.
The worldwide demand for energy is only increasing, and energy companies all over the world have to find new ways to meet the demand and deliver it efficiently and inexpensively to the world. The ExxonMobil story in Guyana is really interesting. They have made a major discovery and they have a multi-year, multi-billion-dollar development project. We began working with ExxonMobil after they approached us with an idea on how to modernize the data platform.
We started to experiment what AI can do for a very complex problem we have in the industry. Seismic interpretation typically takes anywhere from 12 to 18 months to scan through that data, to understand how the Earth had evolved in that piece of the world. We cannot scale anything up if we do not actually have a very well developed data foundation.
You have very technical data, you have a wide variety of data types, and it's all organized typically in very different silos.
We teamed up with IBM to actually help us to take a very small sliver of our work process. I brought together about 15 different personas, and they have very different roles to play. They work together trying to achieve the common goal, which is to make our drill well planning exercise truly collaborative and a lot more efficient.
It changes the way the experts work, and it dramatically accelerates the time that they can use to make these very, very complicated decisions.
Okay, so the key message here is that engaging the service of data analytics, data scientists, machine learning engineers, ExxonMobil was able to cut some, processing time for seismic interpretation by at least 40%. Okay, let's see another use case quickly. I also possibly just play part of the video. This is the case with ADNOC. Let's see how ADNOC is using data science.
Digital technology is now starting to come into the oil business.
The common practice was that we utilize our expert geologists, who are limited in number, to describe all the classification of rocks and ultimately identify the right locations for our wells to be drilled.
They've got to capture knowledge, transfer that knowledge to a younger generation.
And the vertical one?
Artificial intelligence is the way to go to help us meeting these targets.
The time has come for the digital transformation to come into the oil business.
When we started out, there was a very important question. Can artificial intelligence really be applied to such a technical domain such as geology?
ADNOC and IBM are now having this joint project to apply technology which is used to recognize flowers to be applied into rock classification.
We use the high-resolution photos to populate the database in the IBM software.
And IBM Watson team were translating
Doctor,
this into the
minutes more.
image recognition model.
Okay, bro. Yeah, so the key message here again is it's already happening on a very large scale. We've seen companies like ExxonMobil, which is a major IOC, and this is another NOC, a major one, applying data science in their day-to-day activity. So another use case that I've been able to identify from literature is a very common case, which is called the facies classification for those of us that are some geological background. So I wouldn't go into the details of this, but the focus here is to predict facies, which are, as we have here, and this is what the model is predicting. The implication of this is that instead of having a team of geologists spend months achieving a job like this, you could easily train a model to do this in a matter of hours. And this will translate to a huge cost saving. Not just this, we've also have cases in reservoir simulation where, well, a more difficult case actually, where people try to use data science to facilitate this process of reservoir simulation. But at this point anyway, there's still a lot to do with reservoir simulation because it's an entirely physics-based process. To move on, this is a more integrated one that involves practically everything from static modeling to dynamic modeling to asset optimization. So again, I don't have the time to go into the details of this, but it's just to give us an overview of how people are already applying data science in oil and gas business. So apart from these ones that I've identified, there are also lots of other areas where we can have potential applications. End-to-end field development planning is yet to be achieved with data science. Bottom-up reservoir modeling, cybersecurity. I'm sure most of us will be aware of how cyber criminals are attacking, especially targeting major oil companies. So the oil industry is actively looking for solutions from the data science domain. So a couple of other things, but more importantly, this climate change, the Paris Agreement has to be met. And data science is one of the solutions that everyone is making recourse to. To summarize, we are in a time where challenges that we are facing are bigger than have been faced before. Invariably means the requirements from you and I are bigger than they were for those that existed before us. There have been use cases in oil and gas, but several opportunities still exist to explore. So that should be some good news for you and I. So if there's anything you are going to take away from here today, my advice is get involved with data analytics. If you have not, sign up for online classes. You don't have to go and get a degree in data science. That's the beautiful thing. Contribute to open source projects. Find use cases in your organization. Like Brother Yusuf said, volunteer to do things. And naturally, opportunities to earn money will come with time. So that will bring me to the end of this short presentation. Pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it beneficial for you and I. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you very much, brother. That was a very rich presentation.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we are pressed with time. We would have to move the questions to the end of the entire presentation. Please kindly accept our request. A quick similarity exists between your presentation and Brother Yusuf, and that's one thing, that versatility is important for engineers. No knowledge is lost. Learn more. What I hear you say, continue to learn, get into data analytics. There are unlimited opportunities in oil and gas, beyond oil and gas, where data analytics is applicable. There is a big data today. Just think about it. In retail space, in manufacturing, in every facet of life, there's always going to be data to be generated, and somebody has to make sense out of those data. Thank you very much once again, brother. So we would quickly move on to the next presenter. I would like to welcome our sister in person of Hajia Amina Edu. Ajia Amina Edu is also a graduate of LASU. She studied chemical and polymer engineering in LASU. She has an MSc. She has an MSc from Area Watts University in Petroleum Engineering. She currently works with New Cross Exploration and Production Company. Her experience is majorly in drilling engineering. I will kindly welcome you to please take the floor.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. Just in process check, we have 15 minutes for this presentation.
All right, that's fine. Thank you. That's very okay. A little bit of not exactly a disclaimer, but I'm not done with my MSc. I'm just I stopped for a while, and then I'm doing my MBA. My name is Tinwade Amina Oladipo, or Edu Oladipo. I'm a drilling engineer. I've worked as a drilling engineer for 12 years. I'm currently working with New Cross Exploration and Production. And then what I was given to talk about today, it's actually about career opportunities in the oil and gas industry. Like we all know about the fact that this industry, it's quite big. And if we're talking about career opportunities in here, we're actually talking about we competing with millions of people, quite a number of people. It's an industry that is financially rewarding, financially, knowledge-wise, it's quite rewarding. However, before I go into that part of it, I want to just give it a little bit of breakdown when we're talking about the oil and gas industry. It's basically has three different sectors. We have the upstream oil and gas sector, we have the mainstream, and then we have the downstream. So the upstream sector basically, it looks at, we getting the oil and gas out of the ground. Companies involved in upstream operations search for underground or underwater oil fields. We drill exploratory wells, appraisal wells, and then later you develop it. This is the sector where I am, and that's this part of it, basically is where I work because I'm a drilling engineer. So basically, this covers where I am. However, if we go into the second sector of the oil and gas, which is the midstream, all we're talking about here is processing, storing, transporting, and marketing of the oil, the natural gas, and the natural gas liquid, which, we have it's not very, very popular in Nigeria. And then when we go to the downstream oil and gas sector, we have, involving converting the oil and gas into the finished product, the refining, the natural gas liquids, varieties of the other energy sectors and all that. So going back to the major course of the day, saying about, the career opportunities in the oil and gas industry, we'll talk about what are the exact skills and qualifications required for us to work in this industry. Alhamdulillah, we're all engineers, and then, like me, that I did chemical engineering. How did I find myself in the oil and gas? It wasn't like I actually wanted to be a drilling engineer, but, it was basically designed by Allah. And at the same time, it was easy for me based on where I started my internship, where I did my internship first as an IT student in 400 level. Then, I got exposed into working basically with the reservoir engineers and the production technologists. And that was where I developed interest in the drilling aspect of the oil and gas. So, we're already on the right path about, the skills and qualifications we need to have in place for us to be able to, sorry, please, just 1 minute. So, yeah. and which we're already talking about. We're already in there. We already have the right qualifications, to start. And then, the opportunities that lie ahead of us for people, like I rightly said, there's something called the geological part, which I saw one of my brothers had talked about. We have the engineering geologists, we have the geoscientists, we have all these things. But I think everything starts from what exactly is our interest. And that's the reason why, while they were designing our curriculum, they realized that there was need for us to have an internship program. And I think that's where the major people, or most of us, how with the current sector we find ourselves, actually started from there. So I'm not going to dwell more on that, but I'll just go into the other part where it says that, what are the opportunities, opportunities that lie in there for people that are already working in the oil and gas industry. It's easy for us to move. For example, a couple of times we all tried to move to the IOCs from talking about coming from the Nigerian sector, or from the Nigerian with the non-IOC. I have friends that we started the IOC together. They moved into the oil servicing part of it. There are really lots of opportunities for us, lots of opportunities. But if anyone asks me now that, what would you do? How would you, what advice will you give a young engineer that is actually in this industry already? It's a difficult one, because we all know the fact that this industry is not very stable. It moves, when I say it moves, when we have issue, when the oil price is fluctuating, we have issues in the oil and gas industry. I was discussing with somebody yesterday and I said, okay, if anyone had asked me, okay, what other sector would you like to find yourself apart from the oil and gas? I'll probably say maybe, the food industry, where I won't have to think about, there's issue with the oil price today, or, in 10, 15 years to come, the oil and gas industry will still be existing, would focusing on Nigeria, we know that's the only major place we derive our revenues from, all that. But still, opportunities lies in there. I heard for the young engineers coming in, there are a lot of opportunities, going into the upstream, there's downstream, there's midstream. But however, like somebody rightly said, we really need to actually know what exactly we want. When we know what we want, that really takes us to where we want to go. And then we can actually make plans towards it. Like I was telling Brother Muideen yesterday, my topic seemed a little bit funny, because if you're talking about career opportunities in oil and gas, it's a little dramatic and funny considering all that is going on. But still, opportunities lies for people that are already in the industry. We can go into project management, which every company really, really is hiring now. Gone are the days where, they leave everything to the engineers in the in-house. Companies actually do hire consultants to come and manage their projects for them. So that's a part of it that, we can all look at, project management, or for young engineers coming into the industry. The oil servicing is there, where they service upstream. They have, fantastic opportunities in there for the upstream part of it. Yes, the drilling, the geoscientists, the geologists, the reservoir engineers. What happens when you're not drilling? For example, when there's no drilling going on for such a company, what do we do? For such a company, what we really do is that, we actually just, right now, the company I'm working, we haven't drilled in 2 years. So whether me just being redundant, what I did or what they did is that they moved me to well services. Basically, what well services talks about is that, you service, we do reservoir management. How do we manage the production already that's in place? How do we keep making the company still produce? Because if we don't produce anymore, how does the company pay salaries? How would the company still be relevant? The government might just take over such a company. So what we do is that, we basically do reservoir management. We go into and see, okay, how can we manage these reservoirs? How can we still be producing? If our production is on so 1,000 barrels last year, we're not drilling new wells to add up to what we have. at the same time, we don't want to lose all that we have. So what we do is that we do reservoir management. We manage the reservoirs to ensure that we're still making production. So that's about the part for the upstream.
You have 2 minutes to go.
Oh, 2 minutes to go. Okay, 2 minutes to go. Like I rightly said, the energy sector is a massive contributor to the world GDP. It's accounted for, like, I think 2.2% of the total in year 2016, according to the International Energy Agency. So if you're planning to embark on a career in the oil and gas industry or a wider energy sector, this industry offers number of enticing benefits. Like you rightly said, so much that can be done in the upstream, so much can be done in the downstream, which is where we have likes of Ohando, Total downstream, we have NU, we have a couple of all those companies, and then the upper part, the upstream part, is where you have the IOCs. There are lots of Nigerian companies, marginal fields that give into Nigerian companies coming up now. So there are lots of opportunities opening up. So, our prayer will just still remain that, let the Brent price still remain relevant so that what we're producing, we don't drink the crude. The moment we have places we can sell the crude, so the Brent price going up, there are going to be opportunities. So we'll keep drilling and the engineers will be hired, So I think that I'll just stop by saying that, a career in the energy sector, in the oil and gas sector, can be extremely rewarding, both personally and professionally, like I rightly said from the start of the presentation. However, you can ask any question pertaining to this part of the upstream. We don't have to, for the younger engineers, we don't have to limit it to the career opportunities alone. Any question can be asked. I hope that is fine. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you very much for the wonderful presentation. This is enlightening. I can see, again, versatility is key, even in the oil and gas industry. You're expected to be rounded, be flexible to work in any units in the upstream. You've talked about the various categories: upstream, midstream, downstream. I think it's important also to say that Nigeria has concentrated a lot in the past on upstream. We are gradually going into a lot of investments in the midstream now. So that's why you have the likes of the heavy investment on Dangote side, on the refinery, and other type of midstream kind of activities, like a lot of gas plants coming up. So there's a lot of opportunity that we see in that space, has to do with midstream activities. And then when you now come to downstream, all of these midstream activities leads to a lot of products. Refineries actually come up with a lot of products beyond just the petrol and diesel that we majorly know of. There are quite a lot of other products of refineries that you expect to help create activities in the economy. Dangote is also building a fertilizer plant that completely relies on product of the upstream. Fertilizer basically use gas. There are quite a lot of other guys as well. So just to mention a few of the other activities in the midstream and also towards the downstream kind of aspect that people can focus on. So we'll quickly then move on to Brother Sulaiman Adebowale. He is going to be talking about nuclear energy. Brother Sulaiman is also a graduate of LASU. He's a graduate of LASU. I think he also studied chemical and polymer engineering. So I'll just please ask him to take the floor. We're short of time now.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Can you please speak up?
Yeah, so okay. Today, my name is Suleiman Adibawali. I'm a nuclear regulator, and I work with over 8 years. I've been working with the Nigerian Nuclear Regulatory Authority. Initially, the objective of the discussion for today was meant to center more on opportunities in the nuclear energy industry, but most often time there is little information in the public regarding what exactly the applications for nuclear energy is. So my main concentration will be on that of the applications of nuclear energy, and maybe along the line, maybe I'll make mention of the few opportunities that are available. So most often times when when the nuclear energy is being when the word nuclear energy is mentioned, the thing that first comes to mind of some people is weapons of mass destruction and the nuclear power plants, but it's far much more than that. Even though the nuclear energy got like a prominence for the wrong reasons, especially traceable back to the event of 1945, the atomic bomb that was dropped in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. But there has been a lot of improvement since then, starting from the speech delivered by President Eisenhower of the United States on Atoms for Peace. There have been significant progress, which also led to the establishment of the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency. So really, the life that revolves around us is all radioactivity, whether we like it or not. The air we breathe, the food we eat, the water we take in, it's all around us. So really, there's nothing. Just in the words of Marie Curie, she said that's a Nobel laureate. She won the Nobel Prize in Physics back in the days. Nothing in life is to be feared; it's only to be understood. Now is the time to understand more, so that we may fear less. So I would like us to go into what are these applications? Where exactly do we apply nuclear energy? In the field of medicine, in diagnostic radiology, in radiotherapy, in nuclear medicine. That is, many of us from time to time have had an X-ray. If you've taken an X-ray, whether it's a chest X-ray or the skull X-ray, whatever kind of X-ray it is, that's just the minimum. Before you now go into radiotherapy, which involves brachytherapy and teletherapy, then in nuclear medicine for both diagnosis and treatment. Also in the area of food and agriculture, for food preservation, you have your industrial, you have for food preservation, and then also in terms of pest management, in the area of and so many other areas in the agricultural sector too. I may not be able to mention all because of time. Then you also have industrial applications in the petroleum industry. They used both in the upstream, midstream, in the refineries, and also if you look at the refineries, mainly make use of level gauges. The level gauges and some other for some other XRF, XRD for quality control and some other things too. While in the upstream, you'll be looking at well logging, you'll be looking at reservoir estimation, the flow monitoring and stuff like that. Then in other industrial applications, it can come in but generally, virtually many of the industrial applications, whether it is cement, the bottling industries and so forth, they all primarily make use of gauges, reductive gauges, which for monitoring of levels, for monitoring of density, for monitoring of moisture, even in the construction industry too, and sometimes also in agriculture. Monitoring of moisture, for monitoring of moisture and for thickness, for their thickness density. So there are so many other applications too in piping, industrial radiography, which is a form of non-destructive testing, so on and so forth. Then in consumer products, if you have for instance, you have self-glowing watches. That's what it's really, little amounts are used there, whether they are watches or they are clocks. In your non-stick pot and pans, that is what is used to bind the non-stick material. Also, in our computer disks, it helps to the computer memory to remember more, and so forth. And also in the area of scientific research, Nigeria has a research reactor in the Center for Energy Research and Training in Zaria. It's been in operation for about 10 years now, and where they do carry out nuclear activation analysis. That's the primary scientific research that goes on there. Then also in the field of space, in space for probably for powering powering unmanned equipment that they use in space, so, and also for electricity generation. I would like to dwell more a little bit about on electricity generation, because that is where the interest lies most for many of us because of our own sector. Now, what is important here is that we need to understand that there are so many sources through which energy can be generated for power. Primarily, you can divide them into two: those that are from radioactive elements within the earth, and also from those that are solar energy from fusion in the sun. So for those that have radioactive elements within the earth, we look at geothermal energy and also look at nuclear fuel from uranium-235. Then for those from solar energy, we look at the fossil fuels, we look at biofuel, we look at wind and solar, then we look at photovoltaic. Now, for energy policy makers, their interest lies in three things. There's the energy policy triangle. They are looking at the technology, they are looking at the costs, and they're also looking at the environmental impact of the technology. Now, all of this, for geothermal, we don't have access to that here. That is usually found mainly in areas that are along tectonic plate boundaries. While for nuclear fuel, every country and any country can deploy nuclear. It's not compulsory that you must have deposits of uranium before you can have access to nuclear fuel. You can always buy fuel that you use for your nuclear plants, and your nuclear fuel can be you don't have to replace for at least 5 years. So the rest of them these are energy sources that we are used to. But what is important here now is that what are the downsides of nuclear energy and then the upsides? Now,
more minutes, brother.
Okay. As for the downsides of nuclear energy now, for nuclear power, one of the main problems is the front load costs, which is about 60% of the overall operating cost of nuclear power. That's within the range of between $7-8 billion. That's just for 1.1 megawatts of electricity. And another downside is the high level waste that is generated from nuclear power. But in terms of the upsides now, you are having power that will give you carbon free, and also gas emissions free. You have nuclear power that you have power source that you don't have to worry about supplies, the continuous supplies that you're supplying the fuel frequently, and the costs that are associated with that. You have a power source that has a lifespan of at least 60 years in terms of generation. So it's not that kind of power source that you just close down very, very early. So these are some of the advantages and disadvantages. I wish I could share the presentation I have with me here and probably discuss better. But unfortunately, that's not possible. So In terms of for the future in the nuclear energy, the near future lies with the transmutation of nuclear waste. That's the partitioning and transmutation. And that's because the focus is to reduce the half-lives of the long-lived nuclear waste into waste with either that are more stable or that are with shorter half-lives. Then in breeder reactors, these are reactors that will generate more fuel than they consume. That is also probably in the works too in the midterm. While in the longer term, you have power from nuclear fusion. This is where you bring smaller elements together, which are predominantly isotopes of hydrogen, deuterium, tritium, and you fuse them together to generate molecules. So that's the kind of power we get from the sun. So in terms of the opportunities that are available, if you look at the issues, the applications I've discussed, for us as engineers, where the areas where you want to look at of interest are probably biomedical engineering in the area of medicine, just I cuts across. Then you also want to look at nuclear waste management. So nuclear waste engineering rather. Sorry, nuclear waste engineering. That's also cuts across both industrial applications and also for electricity generation and some of those too.
Jazakallah khairan, brother. We're pressed to time. If you can quickly round up.
That's what I'm trying to do. Then you can also look at nuclear engineering too. It is central to virtually a lot of things that are going, because all these isotopes are being produced either from a cyclotron or from a nuclear reactor. So these are just some of the things I'll just share with us. And so thank you.
All right. Jazakallah khairan, Brother Sulaiman. Thank you very much for the presentation. We've run out of time, so we'll just quickly take questions. We've received a number of questions on the Q&A link. We may not be able to take all of the questions, but we'll attempt to. So I don't know if Brother Yusuf is available. I have a few questions for you here, if you are available to help us quickly take all of these questions. Okay. Before we go into that, I would like to thank all our panelists once again for this very rich presentation. So the first question that we have here says, what's the relevance of HSE certifications to all engineers? Is it specifically to environmental engineers? Is this something you can take for us, Brother Yusuf?
Okay. Yeah, I think like a month ago, I received a call from a friend, a colleague that I've also finished from CPE in LASU, and he knew that I was into environmental engineering, and he asked me if I could get someone that could help out with EIA on agriculture for Lagos and Ogun, or focusing on Lagos and Ogun. And what I just want to draw from there is that you can be an HSC expert in whatever field you are. For instance, look at this issue of 5G radiation, ionized or non-ionized radiation that are the controversy. Those are also areas that will require that, okay, you need HSC experts for each of those big stations and the like. So whatever field you are, whether mechanical, electrical, you need to be an expert. If you have an HSC certification, it's going to give you an added advantage, and it's going to show some level of versatility in whatever you are doing. So I think it's a very good opportunity for you that will distinguish you from the others. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that clarification. Before you leave, I have like 2 more questions for you. So this says that federal government is doing a lot of activities with regards to gold investment, right? And gold mining. So how do we secure the environment and waterways from gold extraction, toxic waste? It's something you're able to speak to.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much. That's like I said in my presentation, whenever we have government regulation, I think it was also said during the business idea stuff we had, a session we had last week, that opportunities comes from maybe probably government regulations or problems in the society. So all of these kind of things are challenges that we are faced with. So as an engineer, you need to begin to think, read wide, go to the YouTube and study wide, try and look for certification, online learning. Like I remember when I was in the UK while doing my course on oil and gas, we had a course on bioremediation. So there's this software, we call it RIX4, that we learned and we installed on our system. So a couple of software you can also use to study the impact of all these anthropogenic activities, that's human-made activities on our soil, on the ecosystem. So once you can use all this software to determine their impact, and definitely you can be a consultant on this area. So there are a lot of opportunities. So those are opportunities for us. They exist, just as it has been asked. And once we make ourselves relevant in those fields, people will begin to call on us. Just like I was called, okay, we need environmental impact on agriculture. And that was because I was part of a professional organization and they see me doing things on environment. So you need to join professional bodies and get all of these ideas. Dr. Muritala Ibrahim just finished the webinar at the Ogun branch of NSCHE, and he did wonderful. He was talking about conversion to fuel, of moving from fossil fuel to renewable energy, like photovoltaic and so many other aspects. So they are all opportunities for us to key in. So government regulations are opportunities, challenges in the societies are opportunities for us to key into the environment. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Yusuf. Dr. Jamiu, please, I have a question for you. Can you please take this for us? There's a question from one of our attendees that says, I'd like to ask Dr. Jamiu on practical learning paths for data analytics and what exact tools are relevant in oil and gas.
Okay. That's a very good question, Jazakumullah khairan. The beautiful thing about data analytics right now is that you can actually learn without focusing on a specific domain and then specialize thereafter. What I mean by that, for example, is that I started off learning data science without any specific applications to oil and gas in mind. But then as you go along with these trainings, handling different open source projects, you begin to find out how you can relate them back to problems that you can have in oil and gas. There will always be a meeting point at somehow. So to learn, there are quite a lot of online resources. We mentioned 3 of them, which are very popular. Most of us will know them. One of them is EDX, edx.org, Coursera, as in Coursera.com or .org, I can't remember, and Udemy. Quite a lot of other ones are out there. So what these companies do, what these organizations do is they host universities, organizations like Google, like Microsoft. They host them to teach people data sciences, and at the end of the day, there's a capstone project that is done to test your ability. You have to actually get certain minimum mark to be able to get the certificate. Most of these are paid courses. Some of them have scholarships that you can apply for if you don't have the financial resources. But there is a very cheap one, which is the one of Udemy. Udemy is there, relatively cheap compared to EDX and Coursera. All of these will give you the training that you need. But what is more important is finding projects that you can apply whatever concepts you have learned to. So I don't know of any particular course that is dedicated to oil and gas in any of these, on any of these platforms, but whatever projects you have done, you can relate it back to any specific problem that you have in oil and gas, especially if you are working in that domain. I don't know if I answer your question.
Thank you very much. I think you've done justice to the question. Brother Sulaiman, please, somebody is asking for that. I know you've spoken about this, but can you help us shed more light that, one, how do federal government is planning to build nuclear reactors around the country? How do we deal with the waste, knowing how dangerous this is, and going by our own antecedent? I would like that you just take all the questions at once. Another brother is also asking that, how are your health hazards taken care of? So would they assume that you work in a facility where there's a nuclear reactor? Are you exposed? What caution do you take and all of that? And how much can you rate Nigeria in nuclear power generation? So 3 questions, if you can take everything at once. I appreciate it.
On the first one, regarding that nuclear power is toxic to the environment, that is not the right conception, because nuclear power is one of the carbon-free and toxic-free in terms of chemical emissions, in terms of emissions, gas emissions, that is free from such emissions, and so it's not one that is toxic to the environment in terms of its operations. But during the life cycle of the power plants, waste is generated, and those waste have categories. But the one of concern primarily is that of the high level waste, which especially for transuranic elements, which have very long half-lives. So for such wastes, they are usually stored in underground repositories. So it's part of the plans that will be put in place now in terms of for long-term storage now. But for short to mid-term storage, those wastes are stored inside the storage pond. There's usually a pool in the complex of the nuclear power plant, where storage pools. So that's where they store that. So from time to time, the IAEA will always send inspectors to come and check, especially safeguards, to see that those materials are there and there's nothing wrong with them. It all depends on, in terms of how this waste will now be kept in Nigeria, it all depends on the agreement that will go between Nigeria and Russia. Because Russia is the one that is planning to build these reactors, one in Kogi State, and another one that's in Geregu, another one in Itu in Akwa Ibom. Together they have a combined power, a combined rating of about 4,800 megawatts of electricity. Now, it depends on the agreement. If Nigeria has the capacity or wishes to build the capacity to store in terms of for long-term storage, fine. But if the Nigeria doesn't have that capacity or is not willing to put such a facility in place, then there could be an arrangement whereby those wastes could be returned back to Russia or to whatever is contained in such agreements. At the moment, right now, Nigeria is still in phase 2 in terms of the way we are in nuclear power. We are still at the preparatory phase, and everything is being done to ensure that we are able to come out from that phase within the shortest time possible. At the same time, Nigeria is also taking its time so as not to rush through things in order to consider everything possible. The right regulations are in place, and every other thing too would also follow. In terms of the waste, the health hazards, there are work hazards just like every other place of work, and we do have first and foremost, you do have your protective equipment that you always use from time to time. And likewise, also you would also be there's no one who works in a radioactive environment who would not be issued a dosimeter. So your dosimeter will take records of whatever doses that you are taking, and there are limits that have been set, which are international, which are international standards, and which countries have domesticated themselves. So the personnel are always being monitored from time to time regarding the amount of dose that they receive. In Nigeria, that is usually you get the results from every three months, and these results are usually shared also with the personnel for them to know what level of radiation they've been exposed to. So, and there are rules regarding what the maximum level should be. For instance, in the average over 5 years, no worker should receive more than 20 millisieverts. And in a whole year, no worker should receive more than 50 millisieverts. If that happens, then the job role of that worker has to be changed from that radiation environment. So these are the things that are in place to. I believe I've answered the 3 questions. But in addition to that of the waste, I did mention in the course of presentation that in the midterm there's research that are ongoing into in terms of partition and transmutation for high level nuclear waste. This is going to the aim of this is to reduce 2 things: to get out products that will be the half-lives will be lower than, let's say, 30 years, and then you also have products that will be stable. You have material that will also be stable. So I believe I've answered all the questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sulaiman. Okay, so just to quickly move us on, we just have a few more questions. This is a bit generic. Could you please share companies that you know of where one can apply as a graduate trainee or learn more in the field of environmental engineering? Though it's more geared towards Brother Yusuf, but
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Like I said initially, for every organization, there's this regulation in Lagos now that requires that every organization must certify within Victoria Island, Ikoyi, Apapa, those that have high water table areas, they must not have the conventional septic tanks that we have. They must all have the sewage treatment plant or the wastewater treatment plant. So the components of the wastewater treatment plant, the water treatment plants, if you go to VI now, you basically don't get clean water. So most of the organization there is that they buy water or they find a way to have a very robust water treatment plant. So all of these organizations are facility managers, but the error they make most times is that they just employ somebody that just takes care of their generator, their energy issues, and that's it. So there's a whole lot of opportunity for environmental engineers to key into facility management of all these organizations within VI, Lekki. I'm talking about Lagos as a case study. So I can't say specifically that, okay, these are, so all organizations fall under that bracket. They will definitely be in need of you if you make yourself relevant and you are able to drive yourself through that course. So you could drive yourself through the course of being a facility manager or being a project manager or being an HSE person for such organization. So all organizations, if I just mention, I'm just mentioning just a few out of many. So I mean, then there are also organizations that are registered with the government as consultants to wastewater, as consultants for solid waste management with these government agencies. So maybe on a personal note, I could maybe for mentioning sake, we have the likes of Biotech, we have the likes of so many organizations that are into the environment. So
Jazakallah khairan, right? Just on a final note, there's this question on e-waste, especially from developed countries, keep shipping them into Nigeria, and people buy them as tokumbo. That how do we manage this problem?
Okay, honestly, up until last year March, when I visited eTerra Technology, I didn't know that the e-waste is such of a menace, and I actually did not know that we had an organization doing something about it. So, which is also very, if you just say one organization without, the government, without having the government backing, that means it's still really very poor, and we still need to do a lot about it. But I can tell you for real, the person, okay, I think he's an engineer or two. Maybe we could talk one-on-one. There's this guy that is the MD of eTerra Technology, and he does a lot of conversion of all these waste. So he goes to Computer Village, gets all these scrap computers, and he helps to ensure that, those explosive inside that could cause contamination of our water bodies or the ecosystem are properly being removed and decontaminated, detoxified. So I think there's a process. He has a plant around is it Festac? That was where I went to. So, and we also had to really kit up to help us. I saw all the equipment he was using. So, but the good news finally is that July 16, just some days ago, the Honorable Minister for Environment, Dr. Mahmoud Abubakar, actually presented a national policy on the management of solid waste, so which is inclusive of e-waste, is inclusive of medical waste, is inclusive of trying to ensure that we have zero waste. So we have the likes of Lawrence Singer. Those are advocates of zero waste. You can go on Google and search about what she has been doing. She just had less than 4 kilograms of waste in 4 years, just in a very small, sorry, I said 4 kilograms, about less than 1 kilogram of waste in 4 years. So, and a lot of people that are doing a lot of things on circular economy. So that is the way to go. So with this policy in place and approved by the Federal Executive Council some days ago, I believe we should be entering into a new dawn and a lot of opportunity for engineers, to tap in when it comes to solid waste management. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we would like to use this opportunity to thank all our panelists and all our attendees. Thank you very much, attendees, for all the rich questions. We really appreciate your time. We understand that there's supposed to be another session tomorrow. We promise that should be even more interesting than this one. So please mark that date in your calendar and please be there to join us. Once again, I really appreciate all our panelists. Thank you very much and have a lovely day. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Very much, the moderator. Okay.